This episode of Bend the Knee is brought to you by the Ghost of Harrenhal, whose words are, "Bespeak my endless wrath."
Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we are into Chapter 44, Sansa 3 of A Game of Thrones. And in Fire and Blood, we are discussing the Year of the Three Brides.
Yeah.
So,
Sir Ezra, how we doing today?
doing all right. I have kind of delayed our recording process because I've been hunting for appliances for my house, and I just had the most ridiculous 2-hour escapade of my life, probably. Going to get this washer and dryer out of this house, and way more difficult than it should have been. You know, we almost had to cut a wall out of to get the thing out. I don't know if they built the house around the washer and dryer or how you were supposed to get it out, but it was ridiculous. And then my brother-in-law slices his hand open on the washer. There's blood all down the side, so it's been a little crazy. I'm actually a little amped up here. I'm sprinting upstairs trying to get ready for the show, and just why does this happen? Sir Matt, why can't life just be a little easier?
Hey, good question. Okay, good question.
Jiminy. But anyways, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm good, man. So much is going on with me right now. I got to drive up to Seattle tomorrow for kind of an interview thing going on. So, yeah, so we'll see. But, just a lot going on. Not a lot going on in the world of A Game of Thrones, unfortunately. There is quite a bit going on in the Bend the Knee scene. Sir Ezra, I believe our first Raven's Nest is next week.
Yeah. Yes. It'll be next Sunday.
Yeah.
And we've worked on a time.
Next Sunday we are going to do 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time. Everyone else, you're going to have to do some calculations on that.
Yeah.
But, so for those of you who are in that patron tier, go ahead. You can jump in on the Discord server. And join Sir Ezra and I as we record our first Raven's Nest, which is pretty much follow-up Friday with the community.
Right.
Is essentially how it's going to work. So looking forward to that. We've got a lot of Ravens saved up for that. I don't know how long it's going to take, but come hang out with us on Discord. And for those, there's some people who are in the tier that can jump in and be heard on the podcast. And other people can kind of comment, and some people can kind of read the theories as we post them, and you can listen to us live. So it's going to be kind of a live show. And then we're going to record it, the whole thing, and then we'll post it on the main feed of the podcast as well. So
right. It's going to be a wild ride, though. It's our first time doing it. So we'll have to kind of see how it goes. And it might be a lot of this first time. I honestly think, meeting and talking to some of our patrons might just be sort of, some of that. We might just get to know them for a little bit.
Absolutely.
And we might we might edit some of that out in post-production. So that's the benefit to coming and listening to all the behind the scenes, listening to it live, and what have you there. And also, anyone who is a speaker who's going to be speaking with us and can log in at that time, try to get on a little early, and we'll test, microphone connections or, various things. And if we have to, we can always... We have a number that you guys can call, and we can answer that and do it that way too. So, but should be fun.
Yeah. So we're gonna try it out and kind of see what happens. Sir Ezra and I have been working on that a lot behind the scenes. Also, I've been rewatching the main show, getting ready for the season, because the season is coming soon. Sir Ezra.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's really exciting. What do we think? Less than a month, and we'll have a solid trailer, maybe, or around a month.
Oh, I would imagine. I'm guessing Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah,
is my guess for that first trailer. So if I had to really kind of guess and say, I think I think that would be what would make the most sense. And so that's probably what, like February, usually the first weekend in February.
Yeah.
Is Super Bowl Sunday. So
yeah, that'll be neat. So we'll do on our YouTube there maybe like a trailer reaction and start speculating. We might even have to do like, are we going to do like a standalone podcast for that? Maybe just to talk about.
Yeah. Just depends on who finds themselves in the Super Bowl. If it's a good game or not.
I gotcha.
If it's kind of a blowout, maybe we'll spend a little more time than just a quick little. I mean, we'll certainly do a reaction to it.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, we'll certainly do a reaction. I don't know how long it'll be. Depends on what the trailer is. If it's freaking amazing.
That's true.
Or
yeah, it could just be like another like a.
If it happens to be the Dallas Cowboys and New England Patriots in the Super Bowl, well then I'd rather spend time talking about Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oh gosh, it's awesome.
So But if it happens to be maybe the Chicago Bears or the Chicago Mormonts playing somebody, or maybe playing the Indianapolis Colts or something like that, well that might be a fun game. So
yeah for sure. One more thing before I know you have something kind of funny you want to bring up or something news-wise and newsworthy you wanted to talk about, but in our Facebook group right now, you've got Rebecca in there, the Bannerman. One of our bannermen, no one, who is in there posting quite a bit. Jason Ross, let's see, who else has been in here quite a bit. Liam has been in here, and there's
been a lot of new people in the group, and a lot of people posting a lot more, and so it's good.
Sir Gibbs is in here, and they're deep. There's like long responses. So if you're looking for another place to like actually read, some theories or just different musings on Game of Thrones, the series of Song of Ice and Fire. Definitely go check that out because it's pretty neat. I've been in here just reading before we started the show, and I'm loving it. Loving the discussion.
Yeah. All right, Sir Ezra. The last time Gurr posted on Notablog was December 19th. Wow. So typically Gurr is pretty active, posts about once a week, if not once every other week. He hasn't posted in a while, so that begs the question, is winter finally coming? Do you think he's using this time to really sit down and hammer out the book, or has he got something else going on? Or
wait. How are the Jets? Are the Jets even in the playoff? What's going on?
No.
Okay, cool.
No, they fired the Giants are done too. The Jets fired their head coach Todd Bowles. They're looking for somebody new. So
gotcha. So I'm trying to imagine what he is up to. Is he still doing anything like a book tour with Fire and Blood, or what is that done? Or
I don't know. I haven't. He's on Twitter. I haven't checked him out on Twitter.
He's on Twitter. I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, Gurr's on Twitter. I follow him on Twitter.
Let me check him out here. He is. There he is. Wow. Huh.
Yeah, he is. He hasn't been super active on Twitter. He's posted about the New York Jets, but
that's
yeah.
Oh
man, that's really about it. So. It's going on. Anyway, so I thought I would share this. This is one of the top. I'm big on the Song of Ice and Fire Reddit. I like to go there, read theories, read what everyone's talking about.
Absolutely.
So the top thread today, and this should tell you just how depraved we are, of Game of Thrones or books. Which character sweats the most? And this guy has it broken down. You can use the Search of a Song of Ice and Fire wiki, and he shows the amount of times that it references a character and how often they sweat. So
wow,
there's over 130 mentions of characters sweating in the books.
Does he actually calculate like who is it? Like are they?
He does.
Oh, does he? Okay.
Oh, he has the top 10 written down.
What?
So do you want? So should we go through here? The
Absolutely.
Top 10
That's what we've come to. Then yeah.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's a 13. Okay, so actually he has the top 13 here.
Okay.
So and then he goes on to break it down even further. Like, are they like cold sweats? Are they like sweating in their dreams?
Oh
are they like? Is it like it's pretty crazy. So I'm just gonna some of these guys they're tied at like 3 and 4. So you got like Quentin Martell, Eddard Stark, Jorah Mormont at 3. Brienne of Tarth, Gendry, Theon at 4, Arya at 5, Daenerys and Tyrion at 9, and Jon Snow at number 1 at 10. He is the character who sweats the most or is mentioned sweating.
Wow.
The most.
Yeah, I just found the thread. That is hilarious, dude.
Yeah. So.
Oh. Wow. Perspiration, also known as sweating. He's got like the definition here.
Yeah, it's. I mean, he goes on to kind of to flesh it out and talk about. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. You know. I mean.
Well, there's not sweating, right? So the characters who never sweat, and how much can we learn from them? Why are they not sweating?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Right. I mean, down here he says, you know, Daenerys's various moments sweating could also be a hint towards the Red Door theory. I mean, we're talking some deep rabbit holes here that we're going into. Oh. Says she's almost described sweating because of the warm climate of Essos. If I'm not mistaken, Braavos is also warm, so why would she be sweating so much if she was indeed raised in Braavos? It could be a hint at her being raised somewhere in Westeros and her body not being used to the warm climate.
Yeah.
The fact that Gur made Jon and Dany sweat almost as much also leads us more in that R plus L equals J direction. Oh. Wow.
Oh, my God.
So we're talking some deep rabbit holes here. I'm giving this guy an upvote here on Reddit. I'm a Reddit guy, so
hey,
and then the top rated comment.
Yeah.
So first of all, let me give some credit here. Who is the guy that wrote this? His Twitter or his Reddit name is Cancer Bro, and the top rated comment is tactical 556. He says, George, please, they're talking about sweat. You know, like, so I thought this was funny. Like, that's what we've come to.
That's where we're at.
That's where we're at. So,
my gosh, some of these quotes here, you know, Clash of Kings, John 8, despite the chill in the air, sweat stung his eyes. You know, why?
Well, you know. And this is one of the cool things. If you guys haven't checked out the A Search of Ice and Fire, it's super cool.
Yeah.
You can type in like anything, and then you can search all of the things, all of the books and novellas, and it will kind of bring up specific quotes. And a lot of people do this stuff on Reddit, and they will search. Like one of the ones I found super interesting. I have a link saved to it somewhere. I think in my email, somebody broke down the number of times that sapphires are mentioned and the number of times that arbor gold is mentioned, which is like a drink.
Yeah.
And there's a parallel between the two, and it's like every time that sapphires or rubies or some sort of gemstone is referenced later in that chapter, there will be some sort of a reveal, right?
Yeah.
And anytime that arbor gold is mentioned, it will there in that chapter there will be like a lie, like there's a big lie or something.
Gotcha.
So it's just kind of cool. It's kind of interesting. Like you really break down this like what like Gur's, you know, the sleight of hand, all of this stuff, because he is the problem is that Gur's writing is that way, right? Like every single line, every single word matters.
Yeah, yeah.
In some way or another, and there's far too many connections for things like that for there not to be some sort of bigger overall connection. Which is why I'm fine with Gur taking as much time as it takes to finish out, you know, the series.
Yeah, same here. Absolutely. Yeah, take your time, George. Please. But yeah. Another thing that I've been searching up on there just when we do some of the, you know, like the ravens we get. It's a great. You just go in there, you could type, you know, a character's name or a situation or a quote, and yeah, you can pull up all sorts of really cool stuff there. So it's a good tool. Just a search of Ice and Fire. We'll do it for you.
Yeah, and I kind of want to. I know normally we end the show with ravens, but I kind of want to bring something up here at the beginning of the show, if you don't mind,
Sure.
Sir Ezra. Something that's been in the group that I thought was pretty funny, kind of a big thread going on right now is people. Liam Byers brought this up. He said, "So everyone talks about who is the best swordsman and woman in Westeros, but what at the other end? Who is the worst? sword user in Westeros. He's like, I had trained because naturally anybody without training would be kind of garbage. So who do we see that's like a trained knight or something that kind of generally sucks?
Huh. Wow.
And there's a lot of people talking in this group. Everyone's kind of going back and forth, and it's kind of cool. We got Jason Ross saying, what about Podrick?
Yeah.
He's saying Mace Tyrell probably sucks.
He probably does.
I said the butcher's boy. That guy just really.
Dude.
I said he trained with Arya and Joffrey. A little bit. So
that is terrible. That is terrible. Well, hey, Joffrey's terrible too, right?
Joffrey is pretty terrible. Was it Tommen? We hear about Tommen actually when he's the beginning of, I want to say, Clash of Kings. There's a little scene where Tommen gets on a horse and rides and does some jousting or whatever, and he does actually pretty good. So a similar thing's happening. We have somebody saying Sam is the worst. Lord Adam Parker said Beric Dondarrion, and you know what? I think I gotta agree.
Are you kidding me? Lord Adam Parker said that?
Yeah, well, he does. He says nobody else has died 6 times in combat. Numbers don't lie.
Oh my gosh. I cannot believe he said that. That's
hey
radical.
Man, there's some truth to it.
That is the gods. That's the gods speaking. That's not Beric. It's trial by combat, this and that. He is goodness. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, Lord Adam Parker. We'll talk about this next week. Okay, I'm gonna do some more research on Beric Dondarrion, and Eddard Stark chose him. Okay,
it's true.
So
it's true, and we're gonna talk about that today because Eddard Stark chose him and not the Knight of Flowers. So all right. Well, that was kind of some fun there. Should we head on over, Sir Ezra, or do we have anything left we need to announce?
Let's see. I don't think we do. Just hit up the group, Raven's Nest. If you could send us some of those big theory Ravens, something you want to talk about, we will start the thread tomorrow on. Well, it would be today when you're listening to the podcast. We should have in the Facebook group just some ideas for Raven's Nest or a thread where people can just talk, and we'll pull that thread up during the discussion next Sunday. So,
yeah, and Mystery Night Patreon.
Yes.
Excuse me. Will be coming out soon. We're recording that right after this. So.
Yep. Absolutely. All right.
So, all right, let's head on over to the Maester's study. This week we are into the Year of the Three Brides.
Yeah.
This is kind of a study of how Jaehaerys gets married, some other weddings, and really, to me, this chapter is mostly about Rhaegar Baratheon, and his kind of rule as hand.
Right. Yeah, it is. Well, yeah, it's so the Year of the Three Brides. Again, after we talked about Jaehaerys and his ascension, it kind of goes back and forth here a little bit. You have to understand.
It does in time. Yeah, it kind of there's some. It kind of go. It's kind of telling the story of the brides and kind of going back and forth a little bit. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What's neat is so they talk about the 3 queens later at the end of this chapter and even into the next chapter. And technically there's a 4th when you get into the next chapter of Fire and Blood. So it's kind of cool. Like, Gur really starts to expand some of what, happened here at the very beginning of Jaehaerys' rule. And was it you? Did we say this last week that, or I think it might have actually been Lord Adam Parker who said that Jaehaerys is George's favorite Targaryen king? Does that?
Oh, yeah. That wasn't me. It must have been him. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I don't know if he heard that at the book signing or what have you, but it's kind of neat. He did spend a significant amount of time. He left that wide open to write about for a reason, I think, and seems to write pretty favorably about him. So here as we start, I was trying to see if the wiki was updated here. Have you checked on for
on Jaehaerys?
Yeah.
No.
Because I bet the 3 queens. So his mother is one of the brides. His sister is the other, and both of his sisters, correct?
Yeah.
So it's like Jaehaerys' mother and his 2 sisters are kind of your 3 brides, just for reference before we dive in here. So,
yeah, so you have Alyssa, Allison, and what's the other ones? The Rhaena.
Rhaena Targaryen.
Rhaena Targaryen. Yeah. So I'm gonna read just kind of a big thing here. So, the 49th year after Aegon's conquest gave the people of Westeros a welcome respite from the chaos and conflict that had gone before. It would be a year of peace, plenty, and marriage, remembered in the annals of the Seven Kingdoms as the year of the three brides. The new year was but a fortnight old when news of the first of the three weddings came out of the west. From Far Isle by the Sunset Sea, there in a small swift ceremony under the sky, Rhaena Targaryen wed Andrew Farman, the second son of the Lord of Fair Isle. It was the groom's first marriage, the bride's third. Though twice widowed, Rhaena was but 26. Her new husband, just 10 and 7, was notably younger, a comely and amiable youth said to be utterly bestowed with his new wife. So that's kind of the first of the weddings. And something kind of interesting here is that Queen Alyssa was excluded from the wedding.
Yeah. Right. Why was...
Chroniclers, that's a word for you. Chroniclers in King's Landing report that Queen Alyssa was deeply offended by her exclusion from her daughter's wedding, and that relations between mother and child were never as warm afterward, whereas Lord Rhaegar Baratheon was furious that Rhaena had dared remarry without the crown's leave, the crown in this instance being himself, as the young king's hand. Had leave been asked, however, there was no certainty it would have been granted, for Andrew Farman, the second son of a minor lord, was thought by many to be a far from worthy of the hand of a woman who had been twice a queen and remained the mother of the king's heir.
Yeah. Can I mention something real quick about Rhaegar Baratheon?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're going to talk a lot about him here because this chapter is really actually about him.
Well, he's right now in this year in 49 AC, he's a jerk. Okay. Was it cool?
Oh, absolutely.
Was it cool that he helped Jaehaerys, and Alyssa take back the throne from Maegor? Yes, that's awesome. It's cool. Rhaena is actually upset because, as you know, Jaehaerys' older brother, Aegon, Aenys' first son, was married to Rhaena, and where was Rhaegar then, right? So that's kind of what Jaehaerys gets upset about later on, and so he wasn't there. We'll save that for later. But this whole bit about he's upset that she didn't ask for the crown's blessing, right? You'll find out the irony is that later on, technically Jaehaerys is king, and Rhaegar and Alyssa are the regents, but Rhaegar did not ask Jaehaerys, who is the king, for his mother's hand, in marriage.
Right.
So
he just trying to snake it. And I'm going to read a little bit about Rhaegar Baratheon here. Blue-eyed and black-haired and muscled like a bull, Lord Rhaegar was the eldest of 5 brothers, all grandsons of Orys One Hand. You remember Orys Baratheon, the first Baratheon at Lord Storm's End, who was Aegon the Conqueror's bastard brother. After slaying Argilac the Arrogant, last of the Durrandon, remember he takes his daughter to wife, kind of creates House Baratheon. This says Lord Rhaegar could thus claim that both the blood of the dragon and that of the Storm Kings flowed through his veins. No swordsman, his lordship preferred to wield a double-bladed axe in battle, an axe, Teof said, large and heavy enough to cleave through a dragon's skull. So the interesting thing here, and I think something in Fire and Blood, you do get more of this kind of Baratheon history as well. Yeah. When in A World of Ice and Fire, as we go through, we hear a lot about the brides of the Targaryens, and oftentimes it's either other Targaryens or House Valyrian, right? Because they also have that Valyrian blood, they want to keep it going. But the Baratheons are also kind of one of these houses that continues to kind of marry in, right? Yeah. And so you're creating these other, Baratheons that have that Targaryen lineage. And something I've actually started doing, I started doing this about a week ago, is going through and finding what are the houses that continuously kind of marry in. So the maternal line, right? Like what are these other blood houses that kind of
that are a part of
that continuously bring themselves in, right? Like we see the Starks. Actually, if you go back, the Starks kind of marry a lot with the Aarons. They kind of go back into the Aarons and the Karstarks and stuff like that.
Yeah,
we know the Targaryens continuously kind of marry the Hightowers and the Valerians and stuff like that. So that is something interesting that we're actually getting a bit of in Fire and Blood, so we can see what are these other influencers into these characters, because I think that's something as I read through A Song of Ice and Fire, as we're reading through the main series again, we think so much of that main line, right? Like the Stark line, but also there is a difference between somebody like Eddard Stark and say Robb Stark, who has that kind of Tully line in him as well. And the Tullys are a little more kind of brash, they're a little more kind of hot-headed, right? So
I think that's really interesting. I would love to go almost look at, like, as you say, if the Targaryens aren't marrying each other, then who are the male Targaryens marrying? Which houses are they marrying into? And as you said, Valerians and Baratheons and so on, Hightowers. So that's kind of neat to think about, because they can all kind of claim that blood of the dragon. They've got, or they're what was it? Didn't Robert Baratheon often talk about how?
Right. Yeah. Remember his? That's, you go back to, who was it? Duncan. Or Egg's kids. One of them was supposed to marry a Baratheon. It was Duncan, right? Duncan was supposed to marry. Oh God, I can't remember his name. Lionel Baratheon.
Yep.
Was supposed to marry Lionel Baratheon's daughter, and he ends up marrying Jenny of Oldstone. So one of his other kids marries a Baratheon, and that's how Robert has that kind of blood claim. But you can go all the way back here. I mean, here's a Baratheon marrying into the Targaryen line. So they've all got to marry over the years around each other, and they're going to marry people based upon what houses they're in, so, or what houses are near to them. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay. So that first marriage, Rhaena Targaryen ends up marrying again for the third time, and she's kind of had like a tragic, life, really.
Absolutely.
It's kind of sad. And the other bit here too is that her mother, Alyssa Valerian and Rhaegar Baratheon, while they were away, remember they proclaimed that Jaehaerys was king, even though, because she was queen to Maegor there at the end, and she there's some bitterness, I think, left over as time goes on during Jaehaerys' rule until he makes things right. But she was passed over, right? So there's some bitterness there. There's some vying for power, I guess. So
right.
That kind of sticks with her, and Rhaegar. I mean, some believe. I mean, again, he's a good hand. He's someone who. What's the pair? I'm going to skip down here a couple paragraphs here. The hand was admired for his courage, respected for his strength, feared for his military prowess and skill at arms. The Queen Regent was loved. So beautiful, so brave, so tragic. Women said of her. Even such lords as might have balked at a woman ruling over them were willing to accept her as their liege. Secure in the knowledge that she had Rhaegar Baratheon standing beside her, and the young king less than a year away from his 16th name day. So,
right,
we're in that regency time. So he it's funny because like it's written that like he is a well-respected leader in the Seven Kingdoms, but this also was kind of a power grab maybe in the eyes of Jaehaerys and Rhaena, but I don't know. Their mother seems to love him, so whatever.
Right, and the thing you got to remember is that Jaehaerys, and they talk about this later in this chapter, is that Jaehaerys he's like 15 at this time, right? He's got like a year left before he becomes king. So that's why some people, I think, view it as a power grab, because it's like you have such a limited time to get this going before the regency is over. Yeah,
good point. Yep. So that second marriage, I mean, we've already kind of talked about it, but it's, like the Rhaegar, Alyssa Valerian. Were they married beforehand?
Well, they not to each other, yeah, but they were. So you have
They were together.
Well, Alyssa was married to Aenys.
Right. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Because she's Jaehaerys's mom. You know.
Yep.
And so it kind of talks about her, and they kind of rehash. They spend quite a bit of time in this chapter rehashing kind of like what happened with Maegor, but kind of like through Alyssa's eyes, and so it's kind of interesting. So it says there's some lines here, and it talks about her too. It says, the gods blessed her with the deep purple eyes and shining silvery hair of old Valyria, gave her charm and wit. And then it talks about her and Aenys' marriage was actually everything was pretty well until Aenys, kind of finds himself into depression in those past couple of years.
Yeah.
But I like this line here. It says, in the years that followed, she saw her husband's reign crumble and turn to ash as enemies rose up all around him. In 42 AC, he died, a broken man and despised. It says, the queen scarce had time to grieve for him before his brother seized the throne that rightfully belonged to her eldest son. She saw her son rise up against his uncle and die. Remember, that's Aegon.
Yep.
Right? Just an Aegon Targaryen. He doesn't get a number because...
Right. Yeah, he didn't actually take the crown.
Right, so it was Aegon's throne, right? He should have been Aegon the second, but it doesn't happen.
That's right. Yep.
A short while later, her second son followed him to a funeral pyre, tortured to death by Tyanna of the Tower. Together with her two youngest children, Alyssa was made a prisoner in all but name of the man who had brought about the death of her sons, and was made to bear witness when her eldest daughter was forced into marriage to that same monster.
Yeah. Then
this line here is afterwards. It's like, the Game of Thrones takes many a queer turn, however, and Maegor himself had fallen in turn in no smart part, thanks to the courage of the widowed Queen Alyssa.
Yeah.
And the boldness of Lord Rhaegar, who had befriended her and taken her in when no one else would. Right. So,
yep.
We know, that, this line right here, right? The courage with, or, the Game of Thrones takes many a queer turn, and Maegor himself had fallen in turn. We don't still know by 100% how Maegor died, but to me, this line, which is new. This is new from Fire and Blood. This isn't a throwback in World of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
Does that give us some shred of proof that Queen Alyssa may have had something to do with it, his death? Because we know his mysterious death. People think there are people involved. So
right, yeah, it absolutely could have. And if there's, because the resources that Rhaegar Baratheon has, he wasn't. That line that you had mentioned earlier with his axe and the way that he would use it against crush a dragon's skull, he had said
and that line too. If you go back, sorry, don't mean to cut you off here, but it says, large and heavy enough to cleave through a dragon's skull. It says right after that, it's like those were dangerous words during the reign of Maegor the Cruel. But if Rhaegar Baratheon feared Maegor's wrath, he hid it well.
Yeah. Yes. So he was. Again, he was outspoken. Rhaena is upset because, Rhaegar didn't step up earlier to help her brother, and he was kind of maybe waiting for to see what was going to happen. And he I don't think he was in a military position to do it. If you look at where he was at, but anyway, so she's bitter about that. And then Alyssa, though, gets this refuge from him, and then he helps Jaehaerys take the throne. I think he's a good guy. He is. He's considered, he's intelligent, good military guy. He reminds you of a Baratheon, though. He's got that bold, boldness to him. But the other bit as to why, Jaehaerys kind of saw it as a power grab. It's funny because I don't want to make too much about this. They weren't there's not like a bunch of tension right now between them. It's just sort of like this guy stepping in as like stepdad marrying Alyssa Valerian, and Jaehaerys is not happy with it. Well, she's older and she can't bear children. That's one of the things that was new, not new, but we kind of could have inferred that from A World of Ice and Fire. But she can't bear children. He was a lot younger and could have had children, but chose not to.
Right.
So he could be in this position, which is what some people point to as a power grab. So
right, yeah. So anyway, so it goes on, and this is we go back to the weddings. So their wedding is the next wedding.
Yeah.
Rhaegar and Alyssa, and it talks about it being like the biggest wedding in the history of of Westeros. No wedding had so magnificent had been celebrated in Westeros in living memory, and lords great and small from throughout the Seven Kingdoms and beyond gathered to be part of it. Donald Hightower came up from Old Town with 100 knights and 77 of the most devout, escorting his High Holiness, the High Septim, whilst Lyman Lannister brought 300 knights from Casterly Rock. Brandon Stark, the ailing lord of Winterfell, made the long journey down from the north with his sons Walton and Alark, attended by a dozen fierce North bannermen and 30 sworn brothers of the Night's Watch. And it just goes on. And that's kind of cool. That's where we get some more of that kind of world building. Ooh, who are these guys?
Right.
To kind of name some of these heirs in the family tree.
Yeah, I thought it was cool that there were sworn brothers of the Night's Watch. Which was cool. Attending, which was. So it was a big deal. It was people were coming from all over the place. And one thing, another reason why I think that wedding was so big, this is when they take over, Jaehaerys is actually 14. So really, they were mounting this offensive against Maegor, and remember he had his war council in there before he died, before his mysterious death, and people were urging him to just give in. So Rhaegar had already put a lot of pressure on him, and the young dragon riders, being Alyssa's children, were ready to go. And Jaehaerys did land there before Rhaegar's army, but at the same that was the reason. I mean, he helps win this crown back for Jaehaerys. So I think he deserves. It's kind of like Jaehaerys gets a little bit bitter because people look past him, and it's more about the regents, and maybe he's a little. He's 14, I don't know, but it's a big. So
they have a big wedding, and then it's really, and then is this the one where there is kind of the fight, or is that the next one between kind of the where they go on about the Kingsguard, and they talk about how. Jaehaerys's Kingsguard is like the best Kingsguard there ever was.
Oh yeah, so the formation of the Kingsguard,
right?
Yeah, that does kind of come up here because of the third wedding. So we've talked about the first one, Rhaena Targaryen, which is whatever. Alyssa and Rhaegar, big deal. And then the third one, is it not Jaehaerys?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
And go ahead.
Well, and to do that, so before you get to his wedding, right? He is surrounded by the formation of his Kingsguard happens, and that's important because they play a really big role in his wedding later on. So we talk about them first, but yeah, they're some of the best. They go down, and I want the knights protecting my son to be the said Maegor had old men, lickspittles, cravens, and brutes about him, she declared. This is Alyssa talking. I want the knights protecting my son to be the finest to be found anywhere in Westeros. True, honest men whose loyalty and courage is unquestioned. Let them win their cloaks with deeds of arms, whilst all the realm looks on. Yeah.
Jaehaerys was quick to second his mother's notion, but with practical twist of his own. Men who would do harm to their king seldom attack on horseback with lance in hand. So it was the tilts that followed his mother's wedding yielded pride of, and so he wants a melee instead, right?
Yeah, which is smart.
They dub it the war for the White Cloaks.
Yeah. It was pretty neat because the people who come out of it, you've got a lot of different. You've got you had knights. I mean, you had hedge knights. You had a lot of different folks competing in this. Sworn swords. We're giving up that and coming to this, trying to win some honor, and it's pretty neat, because it's up for grabs. You get to be the best of the best and protect the king. So yeah, they had that tourney. And does it show? It says the ones that were picked here, doesn't it? So let's see, with hundreds of knights eager to compete for the honor of serving in the Kingsguard, the combats lasted 7 full days. Several more colorful competitors became favorites of the small folk, who cheered them on each time they fought. One was the Drunken Knight, Sir William Stafford, short and stout, big-bellied man who always appeared intoxicated. that it was a wonder that he could stand, let alone fight. So the small folk are having fun cheering on some of these folks here. The commons named him the Kego Ale. Is that what that is?
Mm-hmm.
And saying hail, hail, Kego Ale. That's kind of cool. Another favorite of the commons was Bard of Flea Bottom, Tom the Strummer, who mocked his foes with song before each bout. The Slender Mystery Knight, known only as Serpent in Scarlet, also had a great following. So this is one I was reading. I think I read this a couple weeks ago, which I thought was when we first did our overall review of Fire and Blood. This was a woman, actually.
Right.
Jonquil Dark, right? The bastard daughter of Lord Duskendale shows up and is the Serpent in Scarlet. So...
yeah, I like this guy. The eldest champion was a grizzled hedge knight named Sam Good of Sour Hill, a scarred and battered man of 63 who's claimed to have fought in 100 battles and never mind you on what side. That's for me and the gods to know. One-eyed, bald, and almost toothless, the knight called Sour Sam looked as gaunt as a fence post, but in battle he displayed the quickness of a man half his age and a vicious skill owned through long decades of battles, great and small.
Yeah. It goes on.
Yeah, and I like this too. This line right after it. Jaehaerys the Conciliator would sit the Iron Throne for 55 years, and many a knight would wear a white cloak in his service during that long reign, more than any other monarch could boast. But it was rightly said that never did any Targaryen possess a Kingsguard who could equal the boy king's first 7.
Yeah, which is awesome. Doesn't where's the list? Doesn't it list them all here? It should, I thought. Let's see. The small folk of King's Landing were pleased as well. Yeah, he had a bunch of. I know there's a list somewhere. We'll come across it, but because that one guy that you mentioned, doesn't he become the Lord Commander? Sam Good of Sour Hill. We'll see here in a little bit. So after that, Queen Alyssa and Rhaegar decide, their wedding's over. Now they turn to Jaehaerys, and they start to look for like a good alliance, a good match with another great house, another kingdom, or another, one of the 7 kingdoms. And the one thing that they're going to avoid, that they want to avoid, is him marrying a Targaryen. They don't want that.
That doesn't necessarily happen for him.
No, it doesn't at all. And the reason being is that they were nervous. Some of the religious folk were still up in arms about the Targaryens and their marrying brother and sister and all that stuff. So they were really like, okay, we don't want to rehash that. That was Aenys' issue there, and then Maegor just didn't care and had multiple wives and married his own kin. So they were trying to move beyond that, but Jaehaerys had other plans. He loved his sister and actually loved her. And what's cool about what's funny. It's funny the things that Game of Thrones makes you say.
I know. What's cool about marrying your sister?
Yeah, what's cool about that is
that you're an uncle and a dad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, so Sansa in our chapter today talks about the great love that the singers sing about, and one of those is, one of those was actually the Dragon Knight. But one of it talks about later on in this chapter that this union becomes one of those storied kind of love stories, I guess, famous love stories, I should say. And because he truly did love his sister, and he ends up running away with her, to Dragonstone, because they actually they try to marry her, don't they? They try to marry her off, and
Rhaegar Baratheon's trying to. He doesn't want it to happen. So So, let's see. But so he takes off to King's Landing and decides he's going to marry his sister. There's a maester over there. There's a septon over there. So he'll be fine. He takes his Kingsguard with him, though. So that's sort of the cool part to this. To make a long story short, while they're there, Rhaegar... So they get married, no problem. They actually are able to sneak away. They tell the Kingsguard to meet with them there. Don't they fly ahead on their dragons?
you know?
Yeah. Yep.
And that's the other thing you got to remember. Queen Alyssa and Rogar do not have dragons. They are not. That's the one thing she actually cautions Rogar when he gets upset about this union is that, remember, my children, her remaining children, all are dragon riders, all 3 of them. So, got to be a little careful about, what we can and what we decide to do here and be more political, I guess, or try to manipulate them to do what we want. So now the bit here is that his sister was younger, though. Wasn't she a year or 2 younger? And
right.
So Jaehaerys he's a good guy. He actually loves his sister, and he loves the stories of, Aegon the Conqueror marrying his sister and ruling, and there's no one he trusted more, really. So they do not consummate the marriage, though. So
no, they don't, and they don't for a while.
Yeah. So he and Alicent are married. Yeah, they don't for a while. You're right. They're there for a couple weeks, though, aren't they? Like a fortnight or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's what gives Rogar Baratheon. He says, he thinks, hey, if this isn't consummated, we can still, it can be undone.
That's right. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the best part to this whole chapter, though, is when Rogar and his men show up, and they actually try to physically separate the two. And he'd already given, his Kingsguard are there. They're there to. He tries to order his Kingsguard around, and that's just
the confrontation at the gates of Dragonstone. And so, and the cool thing, is he tries to order his Kingsguard, and he says, let's see here, where exactly he says something about like the kings. We have an army, and you're but 7. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Well, then one of the Kingsguard says back to him, like, which one of you wants to die first? Essentially,
Exactly.
Or like
it reminds me. It reminds me of when Barris and Selmy is, when Joffrey kicks him out of the Kingsguard. When Joffrey and Cersei kind of kick him out, and he's kind of steps forward, and the rest of the Kingsguard, minus Jaime, step forward, and he's like, right now I could cut through like the half of you like butter. You know what I mean? Like, like no problem. Like, yeah. So it's pretty, it's kind of like that. But then the cool thing about this, so that's essentially it just kind of, what's done is done is kind of what ends up happening, and nothing really ends up happening. But it is cool at the end of the chapter, there is, there's an asterisk, and it says, or so the confrontation at the gates of Dragonstone was set down by Grand Maester Bennifer. Now remember, this is that kind of point of view thing, is that this whole book is written by Archmaester Gildane. So he's even kind of saying, we got to take this with a grain of salt here. Who was there to witness it? From that day to this, the tale has been a favorite of lovesick maidens and their squires throughout the 7 kingdoms. As many a bard has sung the valor of the Kingsguard, 7 men in white cloaks who faced down 100. All of these tellings overlook the presence of the castle garrison, however. Such records have come down to us to indicate that 20 archers, as many guardsmen, were stationed on Dragonstone at this time under the command of Sir Morel Bullock and his sons Alan and Howard, while where their loyalties lie at this time and what part they might have played in this conflict shall never be known. But to suggest the king's 7 stood alone may haps presume too much. So again, that's just another thing, we say it quite often, is that you always have to take everything in A World of Ice and Fire, the bigger world, not specifically that book, kind of with a grain of salt, because it's all about point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we've gone a little bit long in this Maester study, but I want to read one more thing, because the Sansa chapter is kind of short. If you get a chance, open your book to like 142, and just read this encounter between Rogar and the Kingsguard. So when he's asking, did you claim her maidenhead? The king said, no, she's too young. He smiled. He said, good, you are not wed then. He turned to the knights who had accompanied him from King's Landing. Separate these children gently, if you please. Escort the princess to Sea Dragon Tower and keep her there. His grace shall accompany us back to the Red Keep. But as his men moved forward, the 7 knights of Jaehaerys' Kingsguard stepped up and drew their swords. Come no closer, warned Sir Giles Morgan. Any man who lays a hand upon our king and queen shall die today. It's just so epic. You're like, what? Lord Rogar was dismayed. Sheathe your steel and move aside, he commanded. Have you forgotten I am the king's hand? Aye, said Sour Sam, but we're the king's guard, not the hand's guard. And it's the lad who sits the chair, not you. It's just so cool, you know. This is where you said, you know, you are 7, I have half 100 swords behind me, a word from me, and they will cut you to pieces. And then it's, is it Pate, the woodcock says, they might kill us, but you will be the first to die, my lord. You have my word upon that. And so he basically tells Rogar, you know, make that order and you're the first to die. It's just like, what?
Well, it's kind of the showdown that happens with Joffrey, right? Joffrey and Eddard Stark, you know.
Yeah.
It's you know, who do you trust, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just so cool, you know. And they end up, Rogar really doesn't. He's not like the worst. I mean, he just had his own plans. This is not what he was planning for, and they didn't have the foresight to see that this would be one of the greatest reigns ever, and that
right.
Queen Alysanne is actually one of the best queens the realm has ever seen. Yeah, I mean, so and ends up giving a lot of good counsel to Jaehaerys. So yeah. But that's pretty much it. They leave in peace. I mean, and they let it settle, and he kind of sits on it and says in time, he goes back to King's Landing and kind of plots ways in which he can break this union up. And Jaehaerys and Alysanne just, you know, they chill out. You know, they hang out in Dragonstone until we'll see what happens in the next chapter. But yeah, they're gonna hang out there. So. And it doesn't really tell you what they do until you get to the next chapter, which is kind of cool because it actually picks up with him still kind of plotting, and you're like, what is he working on over there? And then once you get to that, it's pretty neat. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that is it for our Maester study. Let's head on over to the reread. Last week, we were in Eddard 11 as Hand of the King. Ned had heard a petition from some House Tully bannermen concerning raiding on their holdfast by Gregor Clegane the Mountain. He strips Clegane of all lands, titles, and his life, and sends a force under Lord Beric Dondarrion to dispense the king's justice. This week, we're in Sansa 3. Sansa wonders with Jane Poole why her father did not send the gallant Ser Loras to kill the monster Ser Gregor. The next day, her father revealed that he is sending her and Arya back to Winterfell. Sansa insists that she cannot leave because she is to marry Prince Joffrey, who is nothing like his father, and will give her children with golden hair. This is an epiphany to her father. Yeah, kind of a big deal. This is kind of like a big turning point in the series.
Absolutely, yeah. What's the quote? Out of the mouths of babes, or something is what he says. Right. You know, in response to what Sansa says there. So. Yeah, it starts off with them discussing, you know, the situation in last chapter because Sansa was at court and saw what her father had to go through, and he does not send Ser Loras, as we discussed, to hunt down the mountain. And it's you know, that's like her favorite. You know, when it's kind of cool that the ladies are in there and they're looking at, you know, some of these warriors and knights because Jane Poole is super into Beric Dondarrion, you know. But he was too old, according to Sansa. He's 22. And I'm like, what?
Right.
That's awesome. So Jane pulls into Beric Dondarrion. He's betrothed, isn't he? Or is he married?
I don't think so.
I think he's betrothed to somebody in House Dane, but I don't know that he's actually if she ended up marrying because that's how.
That's right. I think he is. Yeah, I think you're right. He is. But we don't know who.
Right. And it's like because that's how he gets Ned Dane, you know, his squire, you know, there, which is kind of neat. So they just think he's, you know, cute. Ser Loras is dashing, good-looking guy, and why not send him? That's what the stories would say, is you'd send the best-looking knight in the room to face the dragon or the bad guy, right? And that's
right.
In reality, that guy's he's good-looking for a reason, okay?
Right.
He hasn't been in too many
and Sansa, right, so Sansa's talking with Jane Poole, and she's kind of explaining it, and she says Sansa thinks that it's his leg, her dad's leg, that's causing him to think differently or, you know, or weird or like something's going on.
Yep.
She says his leg. Jane says uncertainly, she was a pretty dark-haired girl of Sansa's age. Did Ser Loras hurt his leg? Not his leg, Sansa said. Father's leg, silly. It hurts him ever so much. It makes him cross. Otherwise, I'm certain he would have sent Ser Loras.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know what's interesting about the description of... I always do this, and I'm sorry. I derail things, but the description of Jane Poole, I've always found that... Did it just describe her as a dark-haired girl? Did it just say that?
Yeah.
And it just dawned on me. I honestly was not planning on bringing this up, but so Arya has dark hair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that why? Let me look here. Isn't she?
She is. Yes, she is.
Yeah, with Roose Bolton and what have you, and she's she's the air quote Arya Stark. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I was looking at. I've been paying way more attention to like the description of characters. You know what I mean?
Well, hey,
you have
that's
to.
Good, man. Yeah, you got to.
So
now, if you could just start paying attention more to who kills who, we'd be
who is plotting against who, for crying out loud. Goodness. All right. Let's see. So yeah. So they continue their argument, and Arya walks in. You know, she wasn't there at court, and wants to kind of know. Gets kind of, caught up on things. They argue a bit more. Jane Poole says that Ilan Payne should have been sent, because he's the king's justice. And
right.
They talk about what a monster he is, all that good stuff. So,
yes, Sir Ilan is the king's justice, not Ser Loras. Jane said Lord Eddard should have sent her. Sansa shuddered. Every time she looked at Sir Ilan Payne, she shivered. He made her feel as though something dread was slithering over her naked skin. Sir Ilan's almost like a second monster. I'm glad Father didn't pick him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's just so crazy. It's just the cool thing about Sansa is just her evolution as a character and learning, that everything, like the songs are lies, They don't tell the full truth. They're exaggerated and they've changed, and so kind of interesting. Actually, that's told to her by Septa Mordane, just that life is not kind of like a song. So okay, they talk about Beric Dondarrion, and as I had said there. Now this was kind of a neat part about the White Hart, and them going out on the hunt.
The dream she has.
Yeah,
she has a dream that he would be the one to take the White Hart. It had been more of a wish. Actually, it sounded better to call it a dream. Everyone knows that dreams were prophetic.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
So she's lying. I mean,
yeah,
right. Yeah.
White Harts were supposed to be very rare and magical, and in her heart, she knew that her gallant prince was worthier than his drunken father. A dream, truly. Did Prince Joffrey go up and touch it with his bare hand, or did he do it no harm? No, she said, he shot it with a golden arrow and brought it back for me. In the songs, the knights never killed magical beasts. They just went up to them and touched them and did them no harm. But she knew Joffrey liked hunting, especially the killing part. Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, no kidding. That's kind of interesting, though, just about what, like is that narration, or is that, more of her thoughts? It's just a statement in songs. The knights never killed magical beasts. They went up to them and touched them and did them no harm. And then now it continues on, but she knew Joffrey liked hunting. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just a difference between it's her decision to make it seem like a dream. It's her. What is it? The theme there is the idea is she's forcing this. She's forcing this idea, almost forcing herself to believe that her Joffrey fits into those stories. And she's
right.
And her father, can see that he doesn't. He's not the good guy, that you want him to be. So.
Well, the interesting thing is that's kind of Joffrey's total character, right? Is that is Cersei tells him in the show, right? This is a scene in the show where Cersei kind of tells her or tells Joffrey, no, you slayed the great beast, right? In that scene where she's wrapping his wounds. Mm-hmm. And then, kind of at the Battle of Blackwater, it's oh, Sir Joffrey saved us at the Battle of Blackwater, even though he kind of ran off and didn't actually do anything. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So now enters Arya. Now that we've kind of got over that,
right.
The dream, and, she's relaying some of the more of the information about one thing we didn't get was that one of the Night's Watch members had showed up and was asking for men to go to the watch up to the wall. And it just was, again, something that didn't meet her expectations. She thought they all would look like Uncle Benjen. They would all be, these, I don't know, straight-backed, stern, good-looking guys, and this guy's not.
Right, and it's, instead the Night's Watch really is like, toothless guys, balding, old men who are kind of,
former criminals, some of them.
They're criminals, they're rugged, all this kind of stuff.
Well, and what's interesting, too, is that, Eddard kind of asked for, are there any knights here that would do their house a great honor and would join the Night's Watch? And none of them do. And it's sort of like it's lost that that once used to be a great call. I almost wonder, too, if the Night's Watch ever was, like, fully garrisoned and it was something where, it was an honor to get in.
Yeah, it seems like when we read about the histories of them, that's the case, right?
Yeah.
And like when you hear, Bloodraven, went up there and took, all these men with him, and Maegor the Cruel's, Kingsguard had to go up there. So
right. It just makes me think that even before that, I'm wondering, because they've been around before Aegon's conquest, like, was there a time where it was a great honor that they were this renowned?
Oh, I got you.
Around,
I'm sure it probably.
Order.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably was at some point.
It's just cool to think about, like that. That's how I would love for it to be, and maybe that's how the North kind of views it. But now it's mocked more in the South, and it doesn't serve a purpose, and it's kind of a joke. Well, it used to be this super awesome order that defended the realm, and so.
Yeah, I think the North still kind of views that. Jorah Mormont goes or Jeor Mormont goes and joins, and even when Jon kind of goes, he's like, there's great honor in joining the Night's Watch, and Ned tells him the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the South clearly thinks it's a joke. So.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see. Where's the bit where Arya throws the blood orange? Yeah, there it is. Okay, so
it's towards the end.
Yeah, like that's sort of this fight kind of happens when Arya just doesn't believe some of the stuff that that Sansa was saying. They get into they've been fighting for a long time, and I think the blood's just always boiling when they walk into the same room. She accuses her of lying about something. I'm missing where that's at. The Tower of the Hand seemed so empty after they left that Sansa was even pleased to see Arya when she went down to breakfast. So they talk about the men. Remember, Eddard sent like 20 of his own household guard, to go with Beric. They talk about his standard being out front. The lightning standard was out front, and so there's this big kind of procession as they leave. So it's the next day when she heads down to breakfast that she comes across her sister there, and so where is everyone? Her sister wanted to know as she ripped the skin from the blood orange. Did father send them down to hunt down Jaime Lannister? So she has no idea what's going on. Sansa's side, they rode with Lord Beric to behead Sir Gregor Clegane. She turned to Septa Mordain, who was eating porridge with a wooden spoon. Septa, will Lord Beric spike Sir Gregor's head on his own gate, or bring it back here for the king? And that she gets scolded for that because it's not something these young girls should be talking about. Arya brings back up Micah, and the Hound, the relationship between the Mountain and the Hound, and that it was, they both kind of, they're murderers. They're just kind of lumps them together, as being bad people. She's told about the slaughter that took place, and So let's see. Oh, here we go. So she's saying it's kind of the same, and that the Hound and the Mountain are the same, and Sansa says it's not the same. The Hound is Joffrey's sworn shield. Your butcher's boy attacked the prince. And that's when Arya says, liar. Tosses that orange, hits her in the face. And, there's your big fight. It ruins the ivory dress, that Queen Cersei gave her. Poor thing.
Right, and then Arya, then Stark's like, enough. Arya, Sansa's like, it's ruined. Arya says, maybe I could wash it. He says, then I'll make you a new one. She says you couldn't sew a dress to fit to clean the pigsties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this back and forth goes on, and this is where we talk about the big moment, which is he really is not here to scold them about throwing the blood orange. They've been arguing about the whole situation. Why Lady had to die. Sansa's upset about that. She does kind of lie or doesn't speak up, and then even here though,
right?
She actually does kind of lie in that it was Micah attacking Joffrey, so that is a lie.
Right.
And so that angers Arya. Eddard doesn't care. There's a lot of stuff going on. A bunch of his men were just killed, and then the king takes off to go hunt. And so he's like, we're not safe. I mean, he's not taking this very serious. His leg is broken. His household guard is diminished.
Yeah. Everything is bad. Everything's bad. So yeah. So he's done. He's saying it's time. Kind of time for us. He wants to send them back. Sansa found herself too stunned for words. She says, I didn't do anything wrong. I don't want to go back. She loves King's Landing. And neither Sansa or Arya wants to go. And I like that line. He says, at least we found something you agree on.
Yeah, right. They both don't want to leave. Well, and what's crazy, it's you see why Sansa does what she does later is because Arya gets the reassurance that Syrio can go with her to King's Landing and keep on with her lessons. Sansa there's nothing he can do to really
to fix it.
Yeah, to fix what she's going through. So
she could. Theoretically, it's like you're still betrothed to the guy. Like you could still marry him in a couple years.
Right. Yeah. And exactly. He could have. And he starts to kind of like talk her out of it. This is the line I was talking about in Fire and Blood, though, where he says, the boy is no Prince Aemon. You must believe me. So he doesn't belong in those stories. And Sansa says he is. I don't want someone brave and gentle. I want him. Will be ever so happy, just like in the songs. You'll see. I'll give him a son with golden hair, and one day he'll be the king of all the realm, the greatest king that ever was, as brave as the wolf and as proud as the lion. And so before there, it's actually before that, she starts talking about, I love him. I truly do. I love him as much as Queen Nerys loved Prince Aemon, the Dragon Knight.
Right.
So that was kind of a cool connection back to World of Ice and Fire in Fire and Blood. Some of the histories there.
Right.
So, yeah, and it starts to dawn on him, though, doesn't it, with the golden hair reference, and that he is nothing like his father, right?
Right. Yeah, and then this is where this is where he goes and later he'll go kind of check out the book and kind of realize this something's not right here.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's basically, the gist of the chapter there. I mean, it's that big revelation. She's like, he's nothing like that old drunk king, and
right.
Hair color,
he's not.
Eye color.
He's not.
No, yeah, there is absolutely nothing. And then it's like, well, yeah, there is no relation, actually, between the two. So it's wild. And that's sort of out of the mouth of children, comes this revelation. And he sends them both out, and we'll see what happens after that.
So here's a question for you, Sir Ezra, just because it's fun. Let's play what if since we're kind of done with the chapter here.
Yeah.
So what if Eddard Stark had sent Arya and Sansa back to the north? How would things have played out?
I don't know.
I still think Ned gets.
Yeah.
Ned dies. Like I still think that goes the same. But
because
then,
he's still going to confront Cersei. He'll do that without any guards.
Right, but then so you'd have Sansa and Arya, and I think then he has no reason to lie about it, right? Like he when he died he lies about it to save, Sansa and Arya. But if Sansa and Arya are back in the north, maybe Rob would still kind of ride south, right? Because his father is held hostage, but then they don't have to worry about Sansa and Arya.
That's right. That's right.
And that so then he could easily just join up with Stannis or Renly, and I think the Lannisters would be totally screwed then.
Yeah, and if they end up getting Jaime Lannister, then they don't have to do a prisoner swap. There's not like we have
Right.
your brother, you have our sisters. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
That becomes a big deal. So, yeah, it's almost too bad that what takes place in the next couple of chapters. But we wouldn't have the great story that we have. But yeah, I think.
Oh, exactly. It's just fun. It's just always fun
I
to
know.
look at those
Yeah.
those kind of what if scenarios when you look at kind of when you're going back and look at stuff. So
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. Awesome. So that was kind of again, as we said, like a short little chapter, a good revelation there for Eddard Stark, and the Stark, sisters are upset, but what are you gonna do? Things start to kind of really pick up from here on. So we'll need to pay close attention to the next several chapters as we're getting close. So
yeah.
so
all right. Well, let's go ahead and head on over to Send a Raven. Do we have a Raven here, Sir Ezra?
Yeah, we do. Yep. We've got the Ghost of Harrenhal. Sent us a Raven here that we want to kind of talk about. It fit in with the chapter today. So, Alicent, the Good Queen, Targaryen, the Good Queen Targaryen, didn't have classic dragon features, but instead took after her non-Valyrian mother, Alara Macy. She was a fine archer and hunter and flew her dragon Silverwing to distant parts of the realm. Let's see. Alicent was oft described as pretty, but seldom as beautiful, though she was born of a house renowned for beauty. Her eyes were blue rather than purple. Her hair, a mass of honey-colored curls. No man ever questioned her wits. And so that is on page 131, the year of the three brides. Alicent reminds me of Val so much that even many generations later, about 160 years, those classic traits have stayed with those of Targaryen descent. I think Val is half Targaryen, half maybe Ashara Dane or Dane. She became with child soon after the tourney, and we know from Barristan Selmy it was a girl. Okay, so talking about Ashara Dane. Rhaegar was obsessed with the dragon having 3 heads. Why wouldn't he go for a purple-eyed Ashara? Who else could be Val's mother? The similarities between Alicent and Val are parallel. Even their no-nonsense, almost intimidating dispositions, high intelligence, and diplomacy. Yeah, thoughts, Sir Matt?
Yeah, definitely some similarities. Yeah, and we've talked a lot about Val, and whether or not she is a Targaryen. There's something about Val we still don't know. I definitely believe that she is not just a wildling. She seems, I don't know, without sounding like mean, like too smart to be a wildling. And to kind of, in a way, she's not really proper, but I don't know. She seems to understand where she's at, and kind of she has kind of more of a political savvy that I feel like most other wildlings would have.
Yeah.
Because like we know Mance Rayder has that, but Mance Rayder was at least a member of the Night's Watch for a long period of time, so that would kind of make sense as to why he would have that. So, and Val's kind of the same way. So I feel like there's still something to that Val thing. And I would love it if she was half Targaryen. I think it would be cool. It would open up a lot of doors in the future.
Yeah. Right.
So your thoughts, Sir Ezra?
Yeah. So I don't know. Well, I definitely have always kind of thought that Val is a mystery. Definitely not who we think she is, and somebody from, I don't know. It even could be that maybe she was raised in the South, brought north, or she was always north or brought there as an infant. I kind of believe that maybe whoever she belongs to, that they lived north of the Wall for a while. They may have been some ancient, tied to the Targaryens in another way, or back in the day, and they live there. And then she's just been born, north of the Wall, to parents who were descended from maybe Targaryens or half Targaryen or something.
Right.
You know, so I don't know. You know, I'd have to pull up more of her description to kind of look at that, and it is neat. You know, here just to see the influences that Alicent has from Alyssa. You know, from her mother, and how, as we were talking about, just who marries into the Targaryen line and what character traits they bring in when the Targaryens don't marry each other. You know.
Right. Well, so Val is described as being a beautiful young woman with blonde hair, the color of dark honey.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, to me, she doesn't have that like white platinum blonde Targaryen hair. And you would think that, you know, sometimes it's described as people's their eyes. So, young Griff shaves his head so that, you know, that they say, like, talk about how his eyes are, or, you know, he doesn't shave his head. He dyes his hair blue, which kind of causes you to look at his eyes differently. You would think that Val, who, if she had blonde hair, it would look closer to platinum if she was Targaryen, especially given the region she's in, which is, you know, snow white areas. So
right. Yeah. Right. There's this so the connection that the ghost is making, right, is back to this. Her hair is a mass of honey colored curls. You know, and
right.
her eyes were blue. But we know she's a Targaryen, and she's getting some of that from her mother. It's the same sort of thing we were doing when the Dornish influences the Targaryen line. You know, and you have Baelor Breakspear, and you have the baby Rhaenys Targaryen, and they look Dornish. You know, so there's that. You could have. So sometimes those we don't have all the characteristic traits to say it's a true Targaryen. It could be someone who is related in some way. So yeah, that one's still a mystery. I think we're going to get a lot more information on that. Like the other parallel, it definitely. The other parallel too is just the wisdom that Alicent had, and her, you know, being a fine archer and a hunter. A dragon rider, you know, so fearless and things like that. So yeah, there's definitely some connections and some parallels, some similarities. The one that I think is different though is that Val is just to be, Val is like gorgeous, right? Whereas Alicent is sort of a, she's beautiful, but not described as, well, she's pretty, but what does it say? Pretty, but seldom described as beautiful. So
right.
You know, I don't know, but still, there's...
right. And Val, you know, Val also is a beautiful girl in the north, like the wildling north. Mm-hmm. So maybe she isn't as beautiful as everyone says, but it's just because of, you know, you're talking about the Night's Watch who never see women. So
yeah,
right. You know what I mean, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Like, does it change their? Yeah. Does it change their? Again, it's all about perception.
Right.
So does it change their kind of, you know, their perception of her? I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. That could be. So that's neat. We'll continue to speculate more about Val. Maybe we'll make her one of our topics for Raven's Nest and pull some more quotes and just field some other thoughts from our patrons and see what they think. You know, so this is neat. The Ghost does see a parallel, and definitely we've. You know, just there's more. As you got more from Fire and Blood, you have to find these characters and try to make connections and see what maybe, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
might be trying to show us. Yeah.
Yeah, we finally have some new information, so it's good. Now we're seeing all these connections and, you know, stuff like that. All the analyze everything.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, yeah, I think that was our Raven for this week. We've got, again, we're stockpiling them. If you haven't sent us one, you definitely should get that in. You know, here today or tomorrow, and we'll try to prep. That'll help us get ready for Raven's Nest next week. So
yep. So, all right. Well, that is our show for this week. It's time to say farewell. We want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing Chapter 45, Eddard 12.
Yeah. If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
We will see you in a week, and remember that winter is coming.